Good, I'm still here.
We've talked about the deficit, we've talked about the economy. What specific measures do you support to bring down the deficit?
I think there are a lot of voluntary things that we can do in the state of Connecticut. I have talked to many employees within the state of Connecticut. They believe that the retirement plan that currently exists needs to be reworked. I think their leadership would suggest to you that that's not the case, but most people that have come to see me, whether they be in the state police or the Department of Corrections or whoever, believe that that's an area that's ripe to be considered for changes that would reduce the cost of the state of Connecticut. I think that there are a number of areas around the issues around the area of Medicaid that could be improved upon. We have an obligation, in my opinion, to tell people in the state of Connecticut if we're going to increase their copay or increase their premium, especially if it's in a case like Husky or Medicaid. The courts have said you can't do that to people and give them a week's notice. So I think we could have the kind of conversations that we should have about Medicaid and about some of the other, what I would call general assistance type programs, and put people on notice that we can no longer afford to do them at the rate that we're doing them at. Most people that I have talked to think that's a logical solution. We need to save about $3 billion. I mentioned earlier that I think people that are incarcerated have an obligation to pay for their health care. They don't have to pay the day they get out, but I think they should be just as responsible as my constituents to make sure that the bill gets paid. Not 2% of it, not 3% of it, but there's no language that says if someone was able to pay because of their employment, that they had to pay. They're all exempt from paying unless you hit one of those other three triggers. About $4.5 billion is spent on general assistance. We have a lot of duplicate services. I think we can look in that area of the budget and make savings. There are savings that can be found within those. We spend $700,000 or $800,000 a year take care of some people in some state facilities, state-run facilities. I think we could privatize some of those and save a lot of money. Money follows the person. Another good idea. Instead of putting people in nursing homes, let them stay in their house and we'll save the money.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Actually, can I get the question again? I'm sorry.
Certainly. What measures do you support to bring down the deficit?
Okay. There's no magic bullet to bring down the deficit. There isn't one item that got us into this. There's not one item that's going to bring us out of it. What it's going to take is a comprehensive look at the entire structure. One thing is, the reason why I want to go to Hartford and be involved in making these changes is because I feel that I can make them more responsive than my opponent. We've heard him a few times mention things that he would want to cover, he'd want to get rid of. And it seems to be the first things he's always willing to get rid of or attack would be things that have a large social cost. I think we have to save those things for the back end. We have to do everything we can before we have to start getting into people's health care, into people's services. Right off the bat, I would call for a massive reduction in administrative costs of 25% or higher. Just looking through the budget itself, there's many areas that you can see that these things are good programs, don't get me wrong, but we can probably live without them. We can live without them more than we can live without cuts to Medicaid or anything like that. We have multiple commissions to the state dealing with different minority groups like Asian Pacific Americans or Latino and Puerto Rican affairs groups that generate that get money from the state. These are probably commissions that, while I'm sure they do good work, maybe we can live without. That's where the hard cuts are going to have to come. There's no easy answers, but there are places that are more beneficial to maneuver around than others. So making any cuts, I would always look at what's the social cost versus what else can we get rid of. That means that there will be a lot of good programs that have to be toned down or done away with, but that's just the situation that we have to be in.
This will be our last question, and I'm going to ask you if you can condense it to 1 minute each. How would you deal with the power of lobbyist influence on government, Mr. Zappone?
Well, I think the best way to deal with it is through campaign finance reform like we have here in Connecticut. Craig's absolutely right. It's not a perfect system. If I was writing legislation myself, I'd want to have more open access to third parties and other party candidates. I do think that the quantity of money that's given out is probably really excessive for the races that Craig and I find ourselves in here. But without question, campaign finance reform is the number way to eliminate or reduce at least the influence lobbyists have over legislatures. Now, that being said, not every lobbyist is a bad person. I mean, these people do have a point of view, and we have to recognize that they're coming with a specific agenda. But they can bring information. They can alert you to maybe something you weren't aware of. Certainly, I don't think Craig would believe, and I certainly won't say that I'm an expert on every issue. So one thing I'm doing throughout this process is I'm constantly looking for more information. If they can provide information, then I'm in favor of that. But campaign finance reform is the answer.
Mr. Minor, 1 minute, please.
Thank you. It's kind of ironic. The League of Women Voters has a group of individuals that actually qualify as lobbyists in the state of Connecticut. And so I don't consider lobbyists to be bad individuals. I don't consider the education that you can get from them to be inappropriate education. If I choose to vote in favor of something that a lobbyist would like me to support, I'd like to think that it's because it makes sense. Quite often you'll be approached by lobbyists on two sides of the same issue. Somebody in the public thinks it's always a one-sided issue. And, of course, the best lobbyist is the constituent. And I can tell you, between the mail, phone calls, emails, I think a legislator would be hard-pressed to tell anybody here or anybody in the public that what somebody from Bridgeport thinks, who's lobbying on behalf of Cablevision, matters when it comes to what their constituents think.
Thank you.